G'day guys, it's Ben and Matthew. Thank you, Matthew. Here to bring you another video. This one is going to be looking at how to make a round shield. Round shields were very common during the Dark Ages. They were used by people like the Irish, the Celts, the Saxons, the late Romans used some, Goths, Vandals, and so on and so on. Most people sort of associate them with Vikings. That's not necessarily the case. So my family come from a Saxon heritage, and so we're going to make a very simple sort of Saxon and fairly practical round shield. So you're going to need, we're going to use plywood, although you can use birch. Birch was probably the most common one. You can also use ash, timber, oak, that kind of stuff, but it's very difficult to get most of those kind of woods, so we're simply going to use plywood today. Typically they were around about 6 to 12 millimeters thick. We're using 12 mil. Can you stop fidgeting? Awesome. You're going to need a 14 gauge steel boss. So a boss basically means that when you're holding the shield, you have a place for your knuckles and your hand to sort of fit. And you can buy them online. They cost thereabouts of $20. Just checking my notes here. Rightio. The size of shields varied from thereabouts of 30 centimeters historically through to 90 centimeters to a meter. So I guess it depended on what the person was using the shield for, and whether it was ceremonial or like a war shield. And although Vikings didn't really have much in terms of archers, whereas the Saxons did, the Vikings were sort of more about the axe and the sword than anything else. But alrighty, so you're going to need some carriage bolts. You're going to need some rawhide. The best source of rawhide and the most economical is to get one of these. You're going to need some twine. You can get that from a craft shop, and we'll be using that a bit later on. Very easy and quite cheap to use these sort of fold back or bulldog clips, and that will come in a little bit later on. Some linen. I would suggest getting some cheap white linen from in Australia. You tend to buy that from places like Spotlight or those kind of haberdashery type stores. I'm not sure what's the best thing where you are. And other than that, you're going to need sort of PVA or water-based wood glue, and also, what are you looking for? Stop fidgeting. You're going to need PVA water-based wood glue, and also some paint to suit your colour. Alrighty. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to mark out our plywood, and in this case we're going to make 2 shields. One for my son, one for me, and then we'll crack on to the rest of it. So let's go. Alrighty, so I'm just going to use, to make this real simple, I'm going to use a hammer and nail to find the center of my shield, and I'm just going to use a piece of string attached to the nail to form like a compass, and that'll give us my markings to cut. So in Matthew's case, we're going to go for a shield that's about we'll say 65 centimeters thereabouts, and in my case I'm going to go with a bigger one, probably around about 80 or so centimeters, because I want it to have some versatility. Right, so alright, so here's the circle for the first one. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cut it out. I don't really have the time or the patience to use a lot of the traditional tools, so I'm just going to use like a more modern jigsaw. Alrighty, so we've now cut our shields. Let's have a look. And so here's Matthew's. Alrighty, and Alrighty, here's mine. Okay, if you look closely, you might be able to see there's some small splitting around the edges of the plywood, and that's probably due to the plywood around here not being quite the top-notch quality that we'd like to think it is. So the next step we're now going to do is we're going to, well, you now should cut a hole for your shield boss. So that's where you hold your shield, and it gives you the room to do so, and flex your wrist around depending on the position of the shield. I don't have my shield boss yet. I'm still waiting for the mailman to bring it. So I'm going to go ahead with the next step and apply the linen. So the linen, we're just going to glue it down with straightforward PVA wood glue, and what this is going to do is it's going to help prevent any more splitting in the shield and give it a bit of extra life. You want to do 2 layers of linen, one going, if you like, one direction, and the second layer wants to be 90 degrees to that. Alrighty, let's crack on. I have so many projects going on at the moment, it's not funny. Alrighty, so we've got our glue nicely laid out, and now what we're just going to do is smear it around so we get a nice even spread of the glue, and then we'll put the lid on. It's best if we have a helper here, but I don't right now, so I'm just going to crack on as best I can. You need to try and avoid any creases, and then apply your clamps as you go. And that's going to help prevent the creases in the fabric, which you don't want. Remember, we're going to paint on top of this, and if you get this bit wrong, it's a little bit hard to undo that, so work carefully. You want enough of an overlap, but not like too much. Okay, you're going to cut this down to shape anyway, but make sure you've got like a good sort of 7 or 8 centimeters, I think, on excess on top of the edge of the shield. Then once you've got your linen in place, you want to leave it for approximately 24 hours so that the glue can dry and cure properly, and then put the next one on. Okay, right, so I'm now going to put on our second layer of linen, and this is going to help to make the shield quite a lot stronger. One point to note here, obviously there's a lot of historic shields that didn't have linen on them, and there's plenty of ones that did, so it's up to you as to what your kind of personal preference is, but this is what I'm doing. So I just got like a 2-litre bottle of PVA glue, and that's all we're using in this instance. It's quite messy, so just be careful with it. Remember to keep your shield as clean as you can during this process, because you're going to end up with a lot going on, and if those wood chips or whatever find their way into the fabric, then it can ruin the appearance. It's not something you can do anything about. Alright, so now we've got this glue down, what we're going to do is just smear it out and try and get a fairly even coat, especially around the edges, obviously. Right, now you need to keep the fabric pretty taut. just so you're avoiding any creases and stuff. And then just start at one end and work your way across. So now overnight the linen has dried. We've done 2 coats. Remember, you put the first application of linen with the grain going one way, the second should go 90 degrees to that. That's going to apply so much more strength to the shield. I've also hot glued a 12mm hemp rope around the side of the shield, and that's going to mean that when the rawhide gets applied, it gets a much smoother edge. Obviously the back of your shield is going to look a lot like this with this stuff on it. You just need to trim that down, and so what you're going to end up with is something that looks a lot like this. Now I'm putting the rawhide down. I've soaked it overnight, and what you're going to end up with is something like this, okay? So the lengths vary when you get these dog bone things, the width will vary, and the quality will vary, and the thickness varies. So that's not so good. But what you want to do is fold it over so it's in half, and then wrap it around the shield. You want to, well, I'm using 2.5 centimeters or roughly 1 inch with thickness around the shield. That's what I'm trying to achieve. So obviously that the thickness needs to get varied around the inside just to accommodate for that. And I'm punching holes through with a drill at 2.5 centimeter intervals, and that's giving me a nice even stitch length. I'm using a hemp twine with a blunt sail sewing needle, and I got these from Lincraft for about like $1 each, and they're really good. As I say, they're blunt, but for punching through this is really good. Remember, you've got 4 layers now of rawhide, 2 layers of linen, and a 12mm piece of plywood to punch through. So that's a lot of thickness, and you're not going to do that really with anything much else. So let's see how we go. And you'll notice that the rawhide will stay supple for probably like 4 or 5 hours, but as it dries it's going to harden and shrink, which is what you want. But what the rawhide does, and they would have used this historically, is it protects the shield from splitting from an attack on your flank, basically. And that's really what it's there to do. Damn. Rightio. And if your cord splits like that one just did, then just tie a knot in it and carry on. And I would recommend you tying knots in it every 10th stitch anyway. And the reason for that is if you're ever going to use this shield, so in like reenactment type stuff, it will abrade on chainmail and stuff, and just through general wear and tear. So in that case, if you've got it stitched, it means the whole thing's not going to come undone, and you're going to end up looking like an idiot. So So just to improve the I suppose the impact of the rawhide, a tip I was given today was to use a little bit of rope. So this is 12mm hemp rope, and I'm going to attach this by hot melt glue gun just around the circumference of the shield, and that's just going to give me a just a nice sort of clean finish. So when I'm applying the rawhide, it's going to have a really nice curvature on the edge. You got to remember, guys, when you're going to this much effort to make a shield, you really want it to to be good, and you don't want to
mess it up.
Cut corners and end up with a crap job. So this is probably not the most awesome glue gun, but it works. Alright, so this is what we're aiming to end up with, and it's going to take you quite a while. That took me a couple of hours, and I've got my son's shield now to do. The next thing you want to do is you want to end up with your shield handle. It wants to look something like this. And it's up to you. Like, some handles are much shorter, some are made out of fabric. From what I've seen, from what I've managed to research, a full width wooden handle would be average. And don't forget, the handle went the opposite direction to the planks, so your planks might go straight up and down, your handle's going to go crossways, and that just adds strength to it. So the way that we do that, I just mark something out fairly rough, and I'm just going to use a jigsaw to cut this out. That's going to give me a rough shape. Now, obviously, that would be pretty uncomfortable to hold for any length of time. So I'm just going to use the jigsaw to chamfer off the edges, and I'm going to use a rasp just to cut down and just to smooth it off. And finally, I'm just going to give it a quick sand. And so now you end up with something that looks, to me, incredibly realistic. It's actually pretty comfortable to hold, and it's incredibly strong too. So this is just those really cheap, they cost like $1.50 pieces of structural and non-structural pine. This is 90 by 35. I got this from Masters, but they're really good and they're very easy to work with. Alrighty, so that's how you make a handle. I applied a coat of paint to the white linen. It's actually called Sun Yellow, which is a water-based enamel paint, interestingly. You get it from Bunnings, and it's only cost a few dollars, like $5-6 for a tin. And then I'm decided to apply a pattern with both red and orange, which should really come out quite striking. So and I'm only doing this, I suppose, because I'm waiting for the shield boss to arrive from overseas, and it's just seeming to take forever. It arrived in Australia some days ago now, and still hasn't turned up, so a little bit frustrating, but here we go. So but this is, as you can see, it's really quite effective. So let's see how the other coats go. Alrighty guys, so the shield bosses have arrived, which is like awesome, and this is what they look like. So this is a metal shield boss. It's like 7.5 inches wide, which is about 18 or so centimeters, and what it does is it creates the area for you to be able to hold your shield. On the reverse side, I've put this wooden handle in, so I both glued that and also bolted it in, and I've used the same bolts to hold this as the shield boss itself, and you can see that I've done that. Now what we're now going to do is just take the very tops of these bolts off, otherwise you'll find that getting into your back, if you're going to wear it over your back while you're carrying your shield. So let's do that. And for that I'm just going to use a simple battery operated grinder. So this is a Ryobi 18 volt grinder, and this is awesome for the job. Not that expensive and really quite good for the job. And that's what we've ended up with. So just a little bit of the same kind of paint, just obviously in a different colour. So this is just red, and there we go. So, well, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please press the like button. If you've got any comments, questions or suggestions, please leave a comment below. Please feel free to share this video on your favourite social media sites such as Facebook or Twitter. Please tell me what kind of projects you'd like to see me do in the future. Please don't forget to subscribe for updates on videos that are coming out and all that kind of stuff. Lots of good stuff to come, guys. Hundreds and hundreds of project ideas that I've got going on. All kinds of different sort of medieval stuff, from clothing to equipment to weapons, how to use the weapons, how people dressed, how people lived, and all that kind of stuff. So lots of stuff. Please subscribe, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in my next video.